Welcome back, Wainsider family, to a channel that lives and breathes between the lines of every storyline, searching for the truth in the whispered rumors and the loaded glances. Tonight, we are diving into a moment so surreal, so dripping with history and implication, that it feels less like a wrestling angle and more like a seismic shift in the very fabric of WWE's reality. The image of AJ Lee and CM Punk, two of the most iconic and controversial rebels in modern history, standing in the hospital room of the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, is a picture that will be analyzed for years to come. To truly grasp the weight of this visitation, we must first journey back through the bitter history that defines these individuals. We must remember CM Punk and Roman Reigns not as potential allies, but as bitter enemies, the embodiments of two opposing philosophies. Punk was the voice of the voiceless, the man who preached the gospel of reality in a world of sports entertainment. Reigns was the chosen one, the corporate champion, the manifestation of the system Punk so vehemently railed against during his infamous pipe bomb. Their war was not just personal, it was ideological. Punk's resentment for the machine that was Roman Reigns was palpable, a silent fury that fueled his every word and action. For Reigns, Punk represented everything that was wrong with the old guard: disrespectful, unwilling to fall in line, a rebel without a cause that benefited the empire. Their history is written in violence and verbal barbs, a foundational animosity that seemed as permanent as the WWE logo itself. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. Then, we have AJ Lee, a revolutionary in her own right, whose own history with the Bella Twins and the entire Divas era was a quiet parallel to Punk's war. She was the anomaly, the genuine article of weirdness and wrestling brilliance who succeeded in spite of the system, not because of it. Her connection to Punk is the stuff of legend, a bond forged in mutual non-conformity and a shared skepticism of the company's established order. Together, they were the ultimate outsiders. Roman Reigns' ascension to the tribal chief, however, changed everything. He was no longer just the corporate champion, he became the system itself. His reign was built on a foundation of family obligation, immense pressure, and a silent, gnawing loneliness at the top. The very identity of the bloodline was a gilded cage, and his recent hospitalization, the result of a brutal assault, symbolized a vulnerability we haven't seen in him for years. The invincible chief was suddenly, undeniably, human. This is the fractured psyche that AJ and Punk walked into. The scene was not one of confrontation, but of unnerving quiet. There were no smug smiles, no condescending remarks. Instead, their presence was solemn, almost respectful. They weren't there to gloat over a fallen king. They were there to observe the aftermath, to see the cost of absolute power with their own eyes. The tension in the room was not of past hatreds, but of a dawning, horrifying realization. They spoke in low, measured tones. The words were not audible to the cameras, but the body language was screaming. Punk, often so defiant, looked upon Reigns with something resembling pity. AJ's gaze was analytical, seeing not just a man, but the crumbling architecture of a dynasty. They were witnessing the end result of the very pressure cooker they had both escaped years prior. The resentment seemed to melt away, replaced by a grim, shared understanding. It was then that the purpose of their visit became clear. This was not about the past. This was about a common enemy, a greater threat that has forced these historic adversaries to look beyond their own blood feud. The whispers of a shadowy force, a new regime of control perhaps even more cold and calculating than the bloodline's reign of terror, have been circulating for weeks. This entity, this vision, represents a future neither Punk, AJ, nor even Reigns can abide. The silent communication between the three was the true climax. A look from Punk, a nod from a prone Reigns, a knowing glance from AJ. It was a moment of tacit agreement, a temporary truce forged not in friendship, but in mutual survival. In that sterile hospital room, the most unlikely alliance in WWE history was born not from an attack, but from a quiet, terrifying understanding of a shared threat. The emotional aftermath of this moment is impossible to overstate. The backstage whispers are not about what was said, but about what was not said. The silence was the story. There is talk of a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a sense that the old rules no longer apply. Veterans are questioning everything they thought they knew about loyalty and enmity. This wasn't a work or a shoot. It existed in the haunting space between, blurring the lines in a way only these three individuals could. What does this mean for legacies? For CM Punk and AJ Lee, it recontextualizes everything. They are no longer just rebels returning to fight the same old fights. They have been elevated to strategic masterminds, willing to parley with the devil they know to defeat the devil they don't. For Roman Reigns, it is the ultimate testament to his vulnerability. To accept, even momentarily, the help of his greatest ideological enemy shatters the myth of his total self-reliance and speaks volumes about the magnitude of the threat he faces. This potential alliance is built on a foundation of broken trust and betrayed ideals, but also on a grudging, newfound respect for each other's strength. The blood that has been spilled between them, Punk's and Reigns's, is now a shared history rather than a dividing line. It is the blood sacrifice that perhaps needed to be paid for them to see each other not as caricatures, but as warriors who have endured their own unique hells. In the end, this is a heartfelt reflection on the nature of conflict and necessity. It is about the betrayal of one's own past convictions for the sake of a safer future. The trust between these three is not broken, it never existed to begin with. They are building something entirely new from the ashes of their old war, a precarious piece held together by the thin, terrifying thread of a common foe. It is a reminder that blood, whether spilled in hatred or offered in a temporary truce, is the ink with which the deepest stories in this industry are written.